welcome once again to HBCU Live. I'm Senior Editor Kendrick Marshall, and I'm joined today by Jeff Kolpack, longtime sports writer up in Fargo, North Dakota. He covers North Dakota State athletics, been doing so for 30 years, and we have him on our podcast today to talk about offensive coordinator that's been hired by Tennessee State, Tyler Roehl. He had been instrumental in the success of the Bison in their most recent championship runs. He's a former player for the football, and Jeff is going to tell us exactly what Tennessee State is getting with Tyler Roehl as their new offensive coordinator. This hire seemed to come out of nowhere. It didn't seem like Tennessee State was might be one of his targets or where he would land. So why is Tyler no longer at North Dakota State right now?
Yeah, I don't think it's anything that came out of nowhere on this end, Kendrick, to be honest with you, because, he was a finalist for the head coaching job when Matt Entz left for USC and didn't get the job. And it's no secret he was disappointed that he didn't get the job. I went to Tim Paulsek, who was an assistant at Wyoming, who had been here. And Tim had been in the Big Ten. He was at Iowa as an assistant. He was at Northern Illinois. And, Tim just had a more FBS experience. And so, obviously, Tyler was disappointed he didn't get it. And I think those that were in the know and know him were thinking, okay, maybe it's time for him to find a more experience. I mean, he'd been at NDSU for 11 years. Before that, was a player here and was at Concordia College across the river, Division III school. And I think it was just time that he realized he needed to find some new experience. And what better than to be an OC under Eddie George?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a great move for Tennessee State. They're getting a very accomplished offensive coordinator. He was a coordinator when North Dakota State won championships in the FCS in 2019 and 2021. But a coordinator with his experience level and accomplishments, how sought after was he in the industry?
I don't know. I mean, the thing about assistants, you really don't know, who's really going after him and who's not. It's not something they volunteer very often. I mean, you hear rumor mills, obviously, on head coaches, but offensive coordinators, it's more behind the scenes stuff. And yeah, he's got the pedigree, he's got the stats certainly behind him. He's got the rings. I mean, he's won at the highest level in the FCS. He'll be back here next September when the Bison host the Tigers. And again, I think it's just more about his complete total resume more than anything else. I think it was time for him to find something else.
Yeah, I'm curious. You said he was a finalist for the North Dakota State job there that he didn't eventually get. Why do you think he didn't angle for another head coaching job? Why do you think he decided to take his talents to Tennessee State?
Yeah, I don't know if another job was there. I mean, he has no head coaching experience, and he's only been in the Midwest. He's only been in Fargo-Moorhead, really, in his coaching career. Maybe he just didn't have the resume to be a head coach somewhere else. I mean, it wasn't going to be anything less than FCS or a Division I job. I certainly don't think he was going to go in a lower level just to be a head coach. I think and I'm pretty sure he looked at some assistant jobs at the FBS level. Probably didn't pan out or wasn't to his liking. And, I just think it's all about Eddie George. I mean, how long is Eddie George going to be head coach? I'll ask you that. Maybe Tyler could be the next guy there. I don't know.
That's a good question. I mean, Eddie George came into the college coaching game as green as you can be. He was kind of surprised he was even sought after by Tennessee State when they eventually hired him. But Eddie George has slowly and quietly kind of built up his program. You see the way they're starting to schedule. They're going to play NDSU coming up this season. So he's angling to win and win now. I know last year they had their first winning season in 5 years. So there's progress there. And I think he's hoping that Tyler can put them over the top in terms of like to the next level. But I'm kind of curious, like what kind of OC is Tyler Roehl? What kind of play caller is he? What kind of offensive philosophy is Tennessee State fans going to expect?
Yeah, I think at his heart, he's a pretty old school type of guy. I mean, he came to NDSU as a fullback, was switched to running back, actually still holds a school record for rushing yards, and came against, of all teams, at the University of Minnesota, 263. but even as a running back, he was kind of that tough guy, just a tough style. And I think he's maintained that over the years in his coaching spots and play calling. That said, I mean, yeah, he'll open it up. I mean, you don't score and get the stats he did. I don't have them in front of me, but I think he led FCS in touchdowns and was up there in points and rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. You just don't do that running the ball up the middle. I mean, he's I think expanded his portfolio pretty good. He's been around some pretty good offensive minds and he's been around good athletes. I mean, they had arguably their best receiving core this year up and down the lineup, and I think he used that pretty well. And so, it's all depending on personnel. I mean, I know nothing about Tennessee State. I know nothing about the quarterback, offensive stats or anything. I just looking at the story in the Tennessee of Eddie firing his offensive coordinator and relieving his offensive line coach. So obviously he needs some retooling there, and it all starts with quarterback. I mean, you gotta have a good quarterback, and we'll see how that goes about this year.
Yeah, I posted some stats from NCAA.com about North Dakota State's offense. They ranked last season number 2 in total yards, number 1 in total touchdowns, number 6 in yards per play, and I think they were in the top 5 in points and in yards per game. So Tennessee State is getting an offensive coordinator who definitely knows how to put points in yards on the board. But Tennessee State, Eddie George's first year, he hired Hugh Jackson as offensive coordinator before he moved on to Grambling State. So it's not the first time that they had to make a change to their position. I'm also curious. I know he was there at the same time that Trey Lance was, and you mentioned like how he develops quarterbacks. How instrumental was he in developing Lance to be an NFL prospect?
I think the credit to Trey Lance goes more to the quarterbacks coach, a guy named Randy Hedberg. Randy was here in the last year of Carson Wentz. He was the guy that I think developed Easton Stick, who's now the backup with the Los Angeles Chargers. I think Trey left too early. I think a lot of people around here would tell you that he didn't, get enough reps. He left after 1 year as being a starter. That said, nobody's blaming him for leaving for the contract that he got and being number 2 overall. It would have been nice to see him get more experience. Did Tyler develop Trey Lance? He didn't hurt, that's for sure. But Randy Hedberg's the point guy with the quarterbacks. And let's not. I think one thing, getting back to your previous point, Kendrick, is not to overlook is the offensive line that NDSU's had over the years. They got a few guys in the pros right now, and Cody Mauch started the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last weekend at Detroit. Dylan Radins is with the Titans. I mean, they've had a lot of offensive linemen over the years make the show, and so it starts there. And if your quarterback doesn't get protected and your running backs have nowhere to go, you're not a very good offensive coordinator.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, just look at the NFL level of how many coordinators yearly kind of change because the quarterback isn't very good or the parts around the quarterback aren't very consistent. How you think Tyler's going to fit in culturally? You say he spent his entire career in football up in Fargo, North Dakota. Now he's going to Nashville, Tennessee, a totally different environment, totally different culture. How is he going to fit in, you think, in that type of situation?
Oh, I'd go to Nashville in a heartbeat. Kidding me? What a great place. Yeah, that'll be just great for him and his family. I mean, I just think football at the Division I level and above is a pretty fraternity-like system. I mean, I think once you get to know people, it's not a lot of schools out there, really. I mean, what is there, 121 in FCS? That's not a lot. I mean, I think these guys get to know each other pretty well. Conventions or seminars or camps or whatever. To me, that would be the least of my concerns about him is fitting into the Ohio Valley or the alliance with the Big South, and football's football. And his the release by Tennessee State when he said what was his quote? We're gonna do a championship level every day. That is pretty much Tyler. I mean, I don't care where you're at. I think football's the same anywhere in the country, pretty much.
Right. I mean, I know you don't cover Tennessee State and follow their football program, but what does a hire like Tyler Roehl, because of his pedigree, because of this program is coming from, do for recruiting to know that, hey, like we got a coordinator who's from an actual championship winning program?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if he knows the recruiting area. I mean, obviously, I don't think they're going to have the budget to come up Wisconsin, Minnesota and recruit, where Tyler's been, in the upper Midwest mainly. But I guess it goes back to recruiting his relationships and developing those. And I would say that I'd give a similar answer. You go into a recruit's room, whether it's in Johnson City, Tennessee, or Johnson, North Dakota, a player is a player, and you got to sell the program. I don't care where it's at. Obviously, Tyler's done a pretty good job selling the program. You don't hang around this program for 11 years without being a good recruiter, and you don't hang around college football without being a good recruiter. And I think he's done a pretty good job identifying like walk-on athletes over the years, guys who have come in as tight ends, turned into defensive tackles just because of size. And I think he's done a pretty good job identifying those kind of guys. And he's been in a program that really has a really, really good walk-on program. And I think if you're going to be good at the FCS level, I mean, you have 63 scholarships among all your players. So you got to be good in identifying those kind of guys that you think can develop in 2-3 years. And that's the total advantage the FCS has. Not everybody's a full ride. You can take chances on a guy who's 6'6", 240 out of high school, and then next thing you know, he's 6'6", 325 or 305 and a pretty good offensive lineman. So I think Tyler's proven he's done a pretty good job at that.
Right. I was going to ask you kind of something along those lines. Obviously, the recruiting pool for North Dakota State is totally different than it is for Tennessee State. How adaptable you think he can be or is willing to be in terms of knowing like he might not get the same caliber of players or type of players to Tennessee State, and kind of cater his game plan and his game calling to the guys he is going to get down into Nashville?
Well, you better adapt, I guess. I mean, better. I mean, that's just what you do as a football coach. You see what you got, and play to your strengths. I guess I know it's a cliche, but at North Dakota State, they've always had pretty good offensive line, and they've played the power West Coast game pretty well over the years. Obviously, they kind of got away more of it into a run-pass option this year, which was a little bit unique, but still was productive. So I think he's shown that he can adapt even here from the power base, run it down your throat, to more a quarterback RPO kind of thing. And he was instructed to do that from the former head coach who's now at USC. And obviously the results seem to work pretty good.
At the top, you mentioned like he might have been attracted to come to Tennessee State because of Eddie George. Obviously, he's a big name in football, pro and college. And because Eddie George was a great running back in the college level, Ohio State, and in the NFL with the Tennessee Titans, you think because he likes to run the football and Tyler Roehl was a running back and kind of had that disabled part of his offense, that might have been a difference in him coming down and considering Tennessee State?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the playoff teams perennially in the FCS, that you're not going to get air raid teams usually that make it to Frisco. South Dakota State was really good at running the ball. They had the best running back in the FCS this year and one of the best in the country. And Isaiah Davis, South Dakota State had the best offensive line this year in the FCS and wasn't even close. Montana was pretty good at running the ball. They weren't that great in throwing, but made it to Frisco with good defense and special teams. There's a formula there. I mean, I think the all-out run, or the all-out air raid throws and quick strike offense, I don't think that works over time in the FCS. And it's been proven. What I've been covering it since 06, 05. I've been covering this subdivision, and I've seen Montana tried the quick up-tempo offense, and didn't work. Went back to the power game. And so I would imagine that's what you're going to see at Tennessee State is getting back to, and I don't know where they were before. I have no idea, but I would imagine see, or at least they'll attempt to try to do a little more physical attack as far as offensively.
And my last thing for you, Jeff, thanks for all the time. I really appreciate it. Is Tennessee State's going to play North Dakota State in Fargo this fall. Now that
You coming
Tyler's
up?
on the other side, yeah, Tyler's on the other side of that. Like, what do you think this game's going to be like? I mean, like, not a lot of people going into it when the schedule came out, at least gave Tennessee State a chance. But now having Tyler Roehl as offensive coordinator, that kind of changes the dynamic a bit. What's your perspective on it?
Yeah, it certainly does. Adds obviously another cool element to the game. I think once it starts, football's football, and all that stuff will go out the window. But that's going to be a challenge for Tyler when he comes up to see the people he needs to see. But it's a business trip. This is not going to be a homecoming celebration, welcome back Tyler Roehl type of thing. I mean, he's going to be coming up here with one thing in mind, and that's to beat his old team in the Fargo Dome. So I think he'll keep his old affiliations pretty limited. Might have a little press time, I would imagine, during the week at some point, but by and large, I don't see this being any kind of a parade or anything.
All right. Yeah, that game is going to be pretty interesting whenever it happens. And I think a lot of people on both sides are going to be looking to see how the outcome is developed on that one. But Jeff, thanks a lot for your time and perspective. I really appreciate it. And that was InForum sports writer Jeff Kolpack talking about new Tennessee State offensive coordinator Tyler Roehl. And thank you for joining us on another edition of HBCU Sports Live.
Yep, have a great day, Kendrick.
You too.